The scene at Joint Base Andrews Air Force Base, as it was known in the past, on the outskirts of Washington in Maryland. And this is the aircraft that is bringing the President-elect Donald Trump from New York, and just landed there in Maryland, in readiness, of course, for the inauguration tomorrow. Because by this time tomorrow, Donald Trump will have been sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. The inauguration ceremony will take place on Capitol Hill. And it is, of course, expected to draw hundreds of thousands of visitors to Washington, D.C., many millions following the event, of course, on their television screens and other screens around the world. The transition team already in place, hundreds of members of the transition team putting together thousands of appointments, really. There'll need to be thousands of appointments to get this entire Trump administration into place. And while we look at these images, I just want to welcome our guest, who is Jan Halper-Hayes, who is the former worldwide vice president of Republicans overseas, is now a member of the Trump transition team. And Jan is in our studio in Washington. Welcome, Jan. Thanks very much for joining us today. I know it's a busy time for you.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you with us. We'll stay with you, and of course we'll see the images there in Maryland too, as in the hope that we may catch a glimpse of the President-elect. Give us a sense of the kind of activity that's going on behind the scenes right now.
Well, actually, tomorrow they're getting ready for what they expect of 800 to 900,000 who will be on the mall. In the secure area, people who have standing tickets and sitting tickets, there'll be 250,000 people. And they have put $500,000 into the security. One of the things that came out when you were told you could come is you do not bring any selfie sticks. They're really very restrictive on security. And we're actually feeling very comfortable about it.
When you say you're feeling comfortable, obviously it's an event which is a landmark event in the history of the United States, and there'll be massive interest around the world too. What kind of tone do you expect the president to strike when he makes that speech to the nation after he's been sworn in?
I actually think it's going to be a rather down-to-earth speech. I know that he really wants to bring all sides together. And he needs to put a stop to this animosity that's happening with the Democrats. They're really, you know, I love the British expression, they're throwing their toys out of the pram. You know, these are leaders, and they have a responsibility to represent their people, you know, not just stomp their feet because they don't like what has happened. And Donald Trump is very, very concerned about the inner cities. He really believes that he's focusing on 4 different policy areas, which he'll talk about. One is tax reform, mostly for corporations, which we hope companies will repatriate their money over as we lower that tax reform. Education. If those in the inner cities live with failing schools, he wants to create the opportunity for people to find the right school for their kids, whether it's with vouchers, whether it's with savings accounts. There will be a variety of ways to help. The military is a very important issue for him, exceedingly important. And the other thing that I would say is this infrastructure bill, which will make the Democrats very happy because they like to spend money. That is something that I would encourage people to follow, because one of the other interesting things that happens in the first 100 days of a presidency, or historically since 1993, and perhaps nothing has been historical and nothing has been conventional wisdom, but it is the energy drilling, the construction, and the financial stocks that generally go up in the first 100 days. So for investors, I would encourage them to follow the news on that.
We're still on the images, Jan, as you speak to us, because the door of the aircraft opened momentarily. Oh, there it goes again. So we may get a glimpse of Mr. Trump and maybe some members of the family too, as they emerge from the plane in a few minutes' time. So we'll stay on these images. I'm bound to say, Jan, if I may say this to you, you made that set of comments there about the Democrats, and you talked about unifying people. There is surely a great duty on the president himself to set an example and maybe abandon the kind of very divisive tone that he adopted in his own campaign.
Well, okay, the campaign is over. And he has won, and I agree with you, and he also has had that kind of talking. What I would really love is if for 90 days, the liberal media that absolutely can't stand him would just give him a chance, and that they would report things accurately instead of rehashing things from 15, 18 months ago.
We're just seeing now some of the family members emerging from the plane, Jan, so bear with us if you would. Thanks for your patience. We're still with you because, of course, we're all waiting to see whether the president-elect himself emerges within the next couple of minutes, because we're having quite a few generations of the Trump family and other relatives too emerging from this plane. It's a US Air Force plane. It's just landed at the Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. It's not far from DC itself, just a short ride away. And of course, this is an airbase that will be very, very familiar in months and years to come to President Trump, as he then will be, because this airbase is the home of the two aircraft, the two Boeing aircraft that are known by the call sign Air Force One, because that's where they're kept. So this really is the start, if you like, of President Trump's taste of official transport and official power, because it's an airbase which is closely associated with the seal of the presidency itself. You were very forthright there, Jan, in saying that, you know, the media needs to forget the campaign and get to grips with this new presidency. If we see him emerging there in the next few minutes, can I take it from that you think too that they will have something new to go on? Can I put it that way then, that he is going to strike a rather different note, which he needs to do, because lots of people, it's not just the liberal media, lots of people have doubts about whether he's capable of striking a different note?
Well, when we say lots of people, I really have to wonder, because yesterday I was at the airport flying from Chicago to DC, and the skycap taking my bags, I said I'm going to the inauguration. And this is Illinois. Illinois is a very blue state. He said, I don't understand why people are still upset. He won, get on with it, and show the respect for him.
Jan, so, let me stop you for a second. I'm really sorry, because we've just caught glimpse now of President Trump and his wife, President-elect Trump and his wife, because of course in 24 hours he will be President Trump. There they emerge, and they are now within sight of power, because by this time tomorrow, as he takes salute there, by this time tomorrow, they will be probably on their way to the White House, or at least in a few minutes' time, because at this time tomorrow, 5:20 London time, that inauguration ceremony will be probably just drawing to a close on Capitol Hill, and he will by that time be the 45th President of the United States. So a friendly chat with some of the military representatives there at Andrews Air Force Base before President-elect Trump and his wife make their way to DC, ready for, well, the biggest day of his life, certainly tomorrow, and the biggest day for lots of Americans for a very, very long time. Jan, can I ask you, because you've made some remarks in the past in a different capacity about Mr. Trump's, let's just say, state of mental preparedness. Are those remarks that you think now are ones that we should forget?
Well, here's the thing, is that I made that comment for two reasons. One, I was very concerned about his behavior, but also I had asked President Trump in June of last year to take the presidential temperament assessment tool that's been used for 41 presidents. And temperament was such a big issue that no one wanted to speak about what I wrote, because they preferred to argue fit or unfit, good, better, best, instead of the right temperament at the right time. And we are all born with a temperament. Now, our behavior, that is shaped, that's our personality, and that comes from our social environment, our emotional upbringing, our values. Yes, I was exceedingly concerned, mostly because he had now put 16 very established politicians out, and he took the nomination. And I couldn't figure out why he was not elated about it. And then what happened was on August 17th, so I made the comment August 3rd, on August 17th, he announced that he was changing his staff. 2 days later, for the first time, I think, in his history ever, he ended up apologizing. He was surrounded, I call them truth temperers, you know, sycophants who just want to ride his coattails up for their own careers, not telling him the truth. And what happened was Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway came in and said, guess what, you've got a problem. And so that press conference, he said, I really regret that I have offended people. And that was the first time he knew. And after that, for me, I was watching. I wanted to believe that he could change his behavior. And I have to tell you, I watched it so closely that I did not even vote until November 7th, because I really wanted to be sure that these changes really were going to continue also once he took office. And I have great belief in him.
You say you have great belief, and just to underline the point then, and to be clear with our viewers, you no longer think there's any danger of evidence of him being psychologically unbalanced. And I think those were your words at the time, weren't they?
There were. I said, there is an element of him that is psychologically unbalanced, and I'm very concerned because I don't know what is causing it. Look, we all go through a period in our lives of being psychologically unbalanced. I lost my 19-and-a-half-year-old 2 years ago. I got to tell you, 6 months I was psychologically unbalanced. For me, it was understanding what was going on behind the scenes causing it, to see if it was a very serious long-term thing or if it was short. And what I found out was that there was such conflict going on between his staff and the RNC that he didn't even have time to rejoice in getting the nomination. And instead, he took action and he got rid of the problem and put in people who really ran an incredible campaign for him from the middle of August onward.
He's on his way, and they're leaving Joint Base Andrews right now, heading for DC. Just a quick last question, Jan. Where will you be tomorrow?
Oh, I will be seated in the section, able to watch the inauguration.
Well, enjoy it, and we'll hopefully talk to you in the weeks to come. But thanks for joining us today.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
Jan Halper-Hayes there, who is now a member of the Trump transition team. Well, thanks to her for joining us from Washington today, as perfect timing, as the president-elect was there arriving at Maryland and is now, of course, on his way to DC.